let's talk about kind of the first major issue that Jason and I see all the time when we review resumes. And it's really, I wish there was a pointer here. You can't really see it. So I'm going to go back to my doc. Is this up here, right? So like this area right here, the header, and I'm trying to make this to where people who are listening to this can also see it in their heads too. So the header of your resume, where your name goes, where your email goes. The problem I see a lot with folks is that y'all put like way too much information there, and it's really big. I've seen some headers take up, like, I'm not kidding you, a third of the page. Listen, your name doesn't need to be in 32-point font. It just doesn't. And so, and also too, like, one of the things that we were kind of talking about is like, do you need your address in today's world? That's kind of TBD. I mean, I think no address, unless you're obviously trying to get a job locally and the job requires you to be local. Having your address is obviously a good thing. But for the most part, I would say, hey, let's not have your address out in public anymore. I think the internet's kind of a weird place. Also, another thing too, I'm gonna put here job search email. Like, I would truly have a job search specific email, because the last thing you want to do is like be navigating your personal inbox. Like, you know, holidays are coming up. You got email invites from family. You got Christmas lists going sent back and forth in email. For me, like, I would have a job search specific email where you have everything kind of in one, and then you can obviously create subfolders and all that jazz. So for me, I think a job search email, I think having your name first and last in bold, and then your LinkedIn profile and your GitHub, if applicable, or your portfolio. So for me, name first and last, job search email, LinkedIn profile, GitHub, pretty self-explanatory. So I want to go down. So I don't want to go too deep on the top. Don't make it big. This font is 11 font. It's Arial. It's very easy to read. I would just keep it like that. All right. So let's go to the next part, which is the professional summary portion, right? So the professional summary portion, this should be a bullet pointed out list outlining your years of experience as it relates to the type of role you're trying to pursue, or about your career background, right? So one of the biggest things that we're having issues with, or not issues with, that we've seen kind of in the Torque resume reviews, is that if you're more junior in your career, how do you frame this part versus when you're more senior in your career, right? So for me, in my opinion, if you are senior in your career, this should be a pretty easy thing for you to do, right? So let's say you're applying to a staff engineer role that has some leadership skills and you're in the .NET space, right? So what I would put here is like 10 plus years of overall engineering experience in React. Let's say this job requires some .NET. Let's say this job requires some React. Of 10 years of overall experience in .NET. I have 7 years using React. I have 3 years of leadership experience in managing nearshore, offshore teams. To get quantitative, like leading teams up to 7, or leading teams up to 7 in both Latin America and India. Get really specific. I think a lot of times is that a lot of us like write a sentence, but there's so much more context that could be given, and we just kind of stop. Instead of saying 5+ years of leading teams, it's 5+ years of leading global teams, both nearshore and offshore in LATAM and India. That is a much better bullet point. And if you're on the more junior side, depending on how junior you are, Jason and I just reviewed a junior resume recently. This person had 1.5 years of experience. That is enough experience to bullet point out your professional summary, right? 1.5 years of overall professional experience. I have 6 months of using .NET. I have 3 months of using React. I have 6 months of using PHP. Like, that type of stuff needs to be in the professional summary section. If you are having a hard time creating your professional summary section on your resume, the biggest cheat code that I will tell you is go to a job description of the job that you want, look at it, and then reverse engineer what the job is wanting and the nice to haves and must have skills, and put it in your professional summary. In my opinion, if your professional summary is really, really good, you're going to get more calls. When I was a recruiter, when I was like a heads down recruiter, if your professional summary had the required and nice to have skills, I wouldn't even read the rest of your resume. I would call you, because again, you have to realize recruiters, both agency and internal, and hiring managers do not have time to read through long resumes. So for me, and I know this is kind of an intense analogy, if you hit them between the teeth, or you hit them between the eyes, or hit them in the teeth, whatever you want to say, up in the top third of your resume, you're going to get calls. Another thing too, the first page is the most important part of your resume. Even more so, really, the first third of it. Like what I have bolded here is basically the most important part. Your professional summary needs to be nailed down, and then you need to really hit me in the teeth with really good skills right here. And so I think a lot of times, and again, we see this time and time again when we're reviewing resumes, so many of y'all leave the top third part of your resume to be desired. There's so much data that you're not including, that you're not telling a story. And so again, the top third of your resume on the first page is the most important part of your resume, and it's going to be the thing that's going to get you calls. So again, professional summary, very straightforward. I would keep this at most 7 bullet points. Probably 5 is a little bit better. And again, if you do have a technical degree, that carries a lot of weight. I would also tell you this too. If you are shorter on bullet points, maybe include a big accomplishment. So maybe you're only a year into your career, year and a half into your career, but you worked on a website on a team that has 500,000 users. Again, I'm making this up here. To me, I would include that in your professional summary, right? Get people's attention. But again, professional summary, incredibly important. 5 to 7 bullet points, high level about your background. And again, it's not feasible to edit your resume for every single position that's open that you apply to. You edit your professional summary for each position you apply to. And again, what that includes is going to the must-haves, nice-to-haves in the job description of the position you're trying to apply to, and then update your professional summary as it relates to those skills. And again, if I'm a recruiter, if I'm a hiring manager, and you can specifically list out the skills that my job description needs in the professional summary, I'm going to call you probably 8 out of 10 times. So let's talk about the professional experience. The way I have this bolded is how much bolding you should include, which is not a lot. I would have your name bolded. I would have the professional summary portion bolded. I would have professional experience bolded. The biggest things we see is that too many people are putting too much bold in their resume. This template right here, and again, the template that Jason created where you can go in and plug things in. Again, for those of you who are listening to this in the future, torque resume template.vercel.app right here for people who are watching. Go to that. You can plug in your information. It generates a PDF for you. And also, you got to understand something. Recruiters are already control effing your resume. I've seen it time and time again. Most recruiters are not technical. So, for example, if you're a Java developer and you never say, or let's say you're a Java developer and you only use the verbiage Spring Boot or JVM or JSP. I understand these are older language or frameworks. Please don't come at me. But you don't have the word Java in your resume a lot, you're going to get skipped over. A lot of recruiters are not technical. And all they do is they look at the job description, and the job description goes 7 years of Java. And then if they control F your resume and you don't have Java a lot littered in your resume, they're probably going to skip over you. Again, it's stupid. I know, but it's where we're at. And it's just, it is what it is. I want to go on to your professional experience. So the way I wrote this is if you've been at a company and you've changed positions, but also too, it still applies, right? So for me, always name of the company. I would always do month and year start and end date. A lot of recruiters like to see that. When you just put 2025 to 2026, that is very vague. For me, it's like, did you start the job in December of 2025 and get laid off January of 2026? Like, you need to put start and end date with months and years. You have your title. And then I would state if this was remote or in a specific city. Again, I know companies are wanting people back on site. I think you got to toe that line a little bit. Telling me if it's a remote role, like for me with Torque, like we're hiring fully remote. If you have years of experience in a remote specific role, I need to see that, right? If you have 7 years of working in jobs that have been fully remote, that to me knows you can work in a remote environment. So I would specifically say if you are based in a specific city and state, or if it's remote. All right. The next thing I want to highlight is this part right here. Quick high level of the company. It's important now more than ever to provide context of the company you work at, industry, approximate revenue. So for me, and I've talked to a lot of hiring managers lately to confirm this, we are not where like you know 16 languages kind of a mile wide and inch deep and get hired anymore. We're not there anymore. We were there in 2021, 22. We're not there anymore. So for me, one of the things that I've continued to talk to hiring managers and engineering leaders is that they also want to know what industries you're coming from. So if you are in the defense space and you have worked for defense contractors, and you've maybe worked for smaller defense contractors that I may not be aware of, you need to put the company and the industry and what they do as a summary in your resume. This allows the reader, again, an internal recruiter, an agency recruiter, or even a hiring manager who may not know, like if you're not working for like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Boeing, or any of those the big players in the industry, somebody may not know the company you're at. So you can't assume anything, right? Jason and I talk about all the time in our resume reviews. You cannot assume anything in your resume. So for me, always adding a quick high level of what the company does, the industry. Also would love to know approximate revenue. This allows the reader to know, hey, is this person coming from a small company or is this coming from an enterprise company? That signals to the individual based off the job they're trying to hire for if you could potentially be a fit. So again, please make sure that in your resume, you have a high level summary of the company you're working at. Prime example for my dad, right? My dad ran the Outback Steakhouse for 25 years in our hometown. Everybody knows who Outback Steakhouse is. I would still put the summary there, but my dad now is working for a restaurant called Taza Kitchen in Columbia. Taza Kitchen is a much smaller restaurant. Most of y'all may not have heard of it. So he needs to, I've told him this, you need to put what the company does, what they specialize in, the type of food they specialize in, and approximate revenue a year. So moving into the bullet points, this should be the heaviest hitting bullet point. The key to writing a really good resume is to get as quantitative as possible. I don't need a list of tasks. And then how did you increase revenue? How did you increase users? How did you decrease runtime, etc.? Right? Again, we're talking about the first third of the first page of your resume and the top third of it being the most important. The first 3 bullet points in your latest position should be the most impactful parts of your resume. Like for me, if you had not caught my attention from the professional summary portion, then you need to really catch my eye in the first 3 bullet points of your latest position. If you have not done that, then you are, again, I'm probably not calling you. Another thing is, Jason and I reviewed a resume recently, and it was very lengthy. It was very wordy, and it didn't really tell any story. Now, again, I'm not saying that you need to be out here like writing a novel, a fiction novel or nonfiction novel, but you need to be telling me, hey, was brought in for this reason. Here's what I've done. Another thing that I didn't add here is in terms of how you should write your resume. You should never write your resume in first person. I did this, I did that. For me, I think it needs to be each bullet point should start with an action verb, right? I'm not good at grammar. For example, like achieved or accomplished X or managed Y or developed Z. Like it needs to be the start of each sentence should be an action that you took and then outline it. People call it the STAR method, but what I would do is what did you do? What tools did you use to solve it? And then what was the result? So, achieved a 200% lower runtime on the performance of this application by implementing Rust. Again, I'm making this up here, by implementing Rust that allowed the business to gain more users or something like that. Again, it needs to be very specific. That should be kind of the framework of each bullet point. Also, too, one of the things that I do consistently, and I did it with my resume, is every bullet point should carry weight. Every bullet point should carry meaning. If I'm in your industry and I read your bullet point, the response should go, oh, this is awesome. Oh, this is good. Or, oh man, this is amazing. For the most part, if your bullet points are not giving that type of resounding feedback or response in your brain, you need to edit that bullet point and make it more impactful. Another thing I want to highlight too is the technologies used bullet point. 95% of resumes that Jason and I review consistently do not have this specific bullet point. The reason why this bullet point is so big is this is mainly for recruiters to be able to control F and find you that has more technical jargon in your resume. If you do not include the technologies used, you are missing out on the ability to be found online, which is incredibly important. So again, you need to litter each bullet point with technologies you use to solve a problem. And then at the last bullet point of each position, put technologies used and then literally bullet point everything out. Even if you're a product manager, my bro's in product, right? He's using AI tools and, sometimes some wireframe, Figma, whatever. Like, even if you're non-technical in the technical field, you are still touching tools. So for me, I think it's incredibly important. Technology's used, make sure you include that. Also, another thing, no dual columns, no colors. I know some people like to add colors. Why are we adding colors? Why? Like, your resume is not a portfolio. Your resume is not a personality test. Your resume is a way for people to find, locate, and read your career easily and efficiently for them to call you. If you're a designer, there's Dribble, like there's portfolio sites, create a portfolio. Like, your resume is not meant to have color. If you want color, make it very readable and do not let it take away from the content. Again, your resume needs to be boring. Uniqueness of your resume is how well your resume is written, because there's a lot of bad resumes out there. Your uniqueness will come through if your resume is good, not because you use a blue font. The content is what's going to make it set apart from others, not colors. Again, your resume is just a place where people can find, locate, and read your background quickly, efficiently, and then call you. So hopefully you enjoyed this today. Please share this with anybody in your network who needs it. A lot of people need it. I'm just going to say that.